With the CW's Batwoman finally starting almost a year after the character's debut in last year's Elseworlds crossover, I figured now would be a good time to look back over the 60+ year history of the Batwoman and Batgirl mantles. I won't be discussing other women of the Bat family here since... fuck, have you seen the length of this video without them? It's not really all that complicated, but I still have to say it for branding purposes. Let's go back to the beginning and see if we can untangle this yarn ball of a canon. Welcome to Cannonball. Our tale begins with the 1954 publication of Seduction of the Innocent, an infamous book by American psychiatrist Frederick Wortham, which was very much the tropes versus women of its time. It made many ill-conceived and poorly researched claims about the harmful effects of comic books on young readers, from Superman being fascistic and un-American, to Wonder Woman being lesbian propaganda, to Batman's relationship with his adopted son, Robin, having gay overtones. This is believed to be the reason for the introduction of Batwoman in 1956's Detective Comics number 233 and Batgirl in 1961's Batman number 139. These two were Kathy Webb Kane and her niece Mary Elizabeth Betty Kane respectively. And yes, their surname presumably comes from Batman co-creator Bob Kane. Given that they were presumed to have been created to combat the claims that DC was putting out books starring a couple of queers, which would naturally be believed by the ignorant masses, the two characters were kind of shallow. Their sole purpose was to show up so Bruce and Dick could think about how much they wanted to give these ladies a go on their bat poles, if you know what I'm saying. This was made kinda weird in later years once it was established that Kathy is Bruce's aunt through marriage and that Bette is Bruce's cousin, and I believe Kathy is made out to have actually known that Bruce was Batman at the time. The two really didn't fit with the Batman aesthetic even in the Silver Age, and they had very little going for them as individuals to make them anything more than love interests for the boys. As such, the two were dropped unceremoniously in 1964 when editor Julius Schwartz rightfully deduced that they were fucking stupid inclusions. At least Ace the Bat-Hound is a cool dog. What do these two have other than a friggin' utility purse? Both returned in the 70s for a spell, and Bette even joined the Teen Titans. Her post-Crisis incarnation debuted in 1989 with the new persona of Flamebird, a name sharing its Silver Age origins with Dick's Nightwing title. Bette was inspired by Dick's skills and wanted to be a crime fighter like him. She became obsessed with him and the Titans until Dick chastised her poor hero skills, prompting her to better herself and take things more seriously, signified by a new costume that looks a lot less like her Batgirl one and more like Nightwing's. Following 2005's Infinite Crisis, she became a protege to her cousin, the second Batwoman, under the name of Hawkfire, which carried over into the New 52. As part of Grant Morrison's later attempts to bring back a ton of obscure stuff from pre-Crisis canon, a Bette-like Batgirl was shown to have existed in the early days, but it's unclear if this was still supposed to be Bette, or if she still debuted as Flamebird. As for Kathy, she had a few sporadic appearances before being killed off by the League of Assassins in 1979's Detective Comics number 485, as editor Denny O'Neil felt the new, more successful Batgirl made Kathy redundant. Her Golden Age Earth 2 counterpart survived up until 1975's Crisis on Infinite Earths and even got to team up with Earth 1 Batman at one point. In the post-Crisis New Earth continuity, Kathy had been Batwoman up until her supposed death, whereupon she returned to the secret organization Spiral, which had ordered her to become Batwoman to uncover Batman's identity. This backstory then carried over into the New 52, where Kathy briefly resurfaced to assassinate Talia al Ghul. I don't know if this relates to her near death at the hands of the League or to Talia's date raping of her beloved Bruce, but I like to view it as her just revenge. After that, other than a supporting role in the Grayson series, that's it for Kathy. Now for the one you actually know. While attempting to bring in new viewers to counter the falling ratings of the Adam West Batman show, executive producer William Dozier proposed the introduction of a Batgirl. Rather than using Bette Kane, Batgirl would be reinvented as Commissioner James Gordon's daughter, Barbara Gordon. She made her comic debut in January 1967's Detective Comics number 359, 8 months ahead of her September 14th introduction in the show's third season premiere. In her debut story, Barbara makes the Batgirl costume for a costume ball, finding herself intervening in Killer Moth's attempt to abduct Bruce Wayne on the way there. This story was later the inspiration for her Arkhamverse origin in the Batgirl Begins one-shot. Fun fact, Silver Age Batman had no idea who this Batgirl was. Modern Bruce would surely tell her to unmask or quit, but old Bruce was surprisingly chill. Post-Crisis, Barbara was retconned into being the daughter daughter of Jim's late brother, Roger, and then adopted by Jim and his wife, who is, coincidentally, also named Barbara. Well, unless Roger decided to name her after Barbara, but I can't imagine why he would. To me, this makes it even weirder that James and Barbara's children are Barbara and James. But I guess it makes sense because, as you'll see later, repetitive family names are quite a common theme with the Bat Ladies. I've no idea why they did this other than possibly to create a parallel with Bruce, Dick and Jason, who also lost their parents at a young age and were raised by adoptive fathers. The New 52 changed this back though. Barbara stuck around until she was retired in Batgirl Special No. 1 in preparation for Alan Moore's The Killing Joke, in which Joker shoots her in the spine, paralysing her from the waist down and using photos of her broken bloody body to torture Jim. Moore later regretted this decision, but luckily writers Kim Yale and John Ostrander worked to ensure Barbara wouldn't fall into obscurity, having her use her intelligence to become the information broker, Oracle. She then went on to form the Birds of Prey with Black Canary serving as the group's coordinator and was mostly static up until the New 52. I'll save the rest of the New 52 discussion for the end because I have a broader point to make there. The Batgirl mantle remained empty until the 1999 event No Man's Land. The post-crisis Huntress, Helena Bertinelli, took up the role briefly, but I don't personally count her as an official Batgirl since it was only for part of this one story. The next proper Batgirl was Cassandra Cain, daughter of assassin David Cage. David Cain, and Lady Shiva. Cassandra was raised without spoken words, learning instead to read body language to predict her opponent's moves with frightening accuracy. As a result of this, her brain was rewired in such a way where it's difficult for her to learn to read or speak. After killing a person for the first time and reading their body language as they died, Cass was revolted and turned away from the life of an assassin, joining the Bat family in Batman Legends of the Dark Knight No. 120, and becoming the lead of the first ever Batgirl ongoing solo book in 2000. Yes, it was the third Batgirl who had the first ongoing Batgirl book. Shocking, right? And no, she isn't related to the previous Cains. Her name is spelled differently, though it probably is still intended as a tribute to Kathy and Bet. Her solo book did decently well, establishing and developing her relationships with Stephanie Brown, the Bat family, and Shiva, culminating in a final battle with Shiva shortly before Infinite Crisis. Over time, she became more and more adept at speech until she was suddenly evil and making villainous monologues and writing in fucking Navajo. Yeah, she was randomly turned into a completely different character who took over the League of Assassins by killing Nissa Ratko and framing Tim Drake for murder despite how disgusted she was when she first killed someone. Shockingly, fans were not happy with this idiotic editorial mandate. Jeff Johns later had Deathstroke reveal he'd been using a drug to influence Cass, and even Adam Beechin, the writer of the previous story, got a chance to collaborate with Johns and gain some redemption of his own. Beechin then helmed a Batgirl miniseries to further fix the problems by revealing she'd taken speaking lessons with Alfred up until Deathstroke messed with her head. After a final battle with her father, thanks to Alfred suggesting that things may have gone differently if Cass had been treated more like a member of the family, Bruce decided to officially adopt Cass, joining Dick, Jason and Tim as Bruce's official children. You did good, Mr. Beechin. From here, Cass handed off the Batgirl identity to Stephanie and joined Batman Incorporated as its Hong Kong operative, Black Bat. There was a little setup for a fun dynamic with Damian Wayne tied into their respective histories with the League, but then the New 52 happened. Another very brief Batgirl debuted after Cass hung up the mantle, Charlotte Gage Radcliffe, a metahuman with super strength, healing and teleportation, making her the only meta to ever use the mantle. After a run-in with the Birds of Prey, she was dissuaded from being Batgirl by Barbara, who showed her photos of the recently deceased Robin's autopsy. She took on the name Misfit and continued superhero work, with a potential future version of her becoming a Black Canary-inspired take on Huntress with the Titans. She became one of Oracle's confidants shortly before the New 52, which has only seen her cameo during Batgirl number 34. The fourth true Batgirl was, as previously mentioned, Stephanie Brown. Making her debut in 1992's Detective Comics number 647, she adopted the identity of Spoiler to help foil the plans of her father, the villainous Clue Master. She really got into being a superhero and kept going with it. After Tim Drake helped her out during her pregnancy, yes, that happened, the two started dating, which became a problem when his father sent him to boarding school since he wasn't allowed to tell her his real name. She was also close friends with Cassandra around this time, even later appearing as a Spectre during Cass's near-death experience. In In 2004, Steph took over the Robin mantle from Tim after his father learned his identity and stopped him from being Robin. Stephanie wasn't particularly great at being Robin and was soon fired by Batman when she disobeyed him in the field. To prove her worth, she enacted one of Bruce's large-scale plans to end organised crime in Gotham, which hinged on the involvement of Bruce's own criminal alias, Matches Malone, which Stephanie was tragically unaware of. This resulted in a massive gang war in which Stephanie was captured and tortured by Black Mask, succumbing to her wound soon after and dying in Batman number 633. After it was revealed that Dr. Leslie Tompkins intentionally let her die to scare other kids away from trying to be superheroes, fan outrage led to Stephanie's return in 2008 as spoiler again. It was revealed that Tompkins had faked her death since her identity was compromised and they'd been living together in Africa for the duration. In 2009, Steph became the new Batgirl in a new solo series that ran up until the dawn of the New 52. It was a shame it ended when it did, since Steph being active in the field while Barbara serves as tech support a la Batman Beyond is my favourite Batgirl dynamic. Plus, Stephanie had my favourite Batgirl costume, and she was proven to have grown into a very capable crime fighter by this point, as seen in the Flood storyline, where she managed to fight off the mind-controlled Catwoman, Huntress and Man-Bat. Fortunately, she got one last chance to shine in the Convergence Batgirl tie-in as the champion of New Earth Gotham. As for Batwoman, like Superwoman, it was a mantle that DC really had no good ideas what to do with. By and large, it was reserved for possible futures and alternate universes where it would be used by grown-up Batgirls like Bette and Cass, gender-swapped Bruces like Helena and Bryce, or whoever ended up with Bruce like Selina and Diana. DC finally took a second stab at a mainline version following Infinite Crisis. The original plan was to have Barbara regain the ability to walk and become Batwoman. This idea got far enough along for legendary artist Alex Ross to design the costume, drawing on his own artwork of Barbara as Batgirl from a few years earlier. The problem was that fans latch onto characters they can relate to, especially those with disabilities. It's the main reason Daredevil remains relevant despite never really being more than a B-list hero at best. Just as blind fans appreciate Daredevil representing them, wheelchair-bound fans appreciated Barbara. Admittedly, Barbara being unable to get her spine fixed in a world that has both Cyborg and Zatanna was always questionable, but DC decided it wouldn't be ready to unparalyze her for another 6 years, so a reimagined Cathy was created instead with a slightly tweaked costume from Ross's redesign. Catherine Kate Kane is the antithesis of her Golden Age counterpart. Where Cathy wore a loud yellow costume, Kate wears a muted black. Where Cathy had a girlish utility purse, Kate is an army brat with a utility belt. Where Cathy existed solely as a love interest for Bruce, Kate is both a lesbian and his first cousin, her father Jacob being Martha Wayne's brother. The reason for making her gay was reportedly to reflect modern society and the modern fan base, and also to differentiate her from the rest of the Bat family, since they can get kinda samey with the same skills and gadget pool as Bruce. She made her debut in 52 number 7 as a former lover of Detective Renee Montoya and played a larger role later in the series. She took over as lead character of Detective Comics in 2009, where her backstory was fleshed out more. She was taken hostage with her mother and twin sister Beth on her 12th birthday, emerging as the sole survivor when her father came to rescue them. She joined the military and was kicked out for her sexuality. After fighting off a mugger, she encountered Batman, inspiring her to be trained by her father so she could become Batwoman. So yeah, it's clear that Kate was intended as a reimagining of Cathy, but Grant Morrison chose to re-establish Cathy as a separate individual later. Oh, and Jacob remarried to a woman named Catherine Hamilton, who isn't supposed to be Cathy either. Add in Martha's mother Elizabeth and that's 4 Kanes using the Batmantle, 3 Catherine Kanes and 3 Elizabeth Kanes. Like I mentioned before, this is a fairly unimaginative family. Now, about that relaunch. One of the biggest losses in the transition from the New Earth continuity to the New 52 was the loss of Legacy. It's a real shame too, since it was the biggest thing DC had over Marvel in my opinion. Seeing gatherings of the Flash family, the Robins working together as brothers, and these Batgirls being mentored by Barbara and being close friends was all so great to see. It's one of the main reasons New Earth and universes inspired by it are my favourite versions of the DCU. But with Earth 2 being split off from Prime Earth and the heroes losing 10 years of their collective history, most of DC's legacy mantles were reduced down, with Green Lantern and Robin getting off with only 1 loss apiece, Steph in the latter's case, and the Bat Ladies being completely wiped. Barbara was now the only ever Batgirl and Kate was the only ever Batwoman. Babs' history as Oracle carried over, but the Batgirl mantle simply remained empty until she got an implant in her spine that let her return to the role, which I feel was a mistake for reasons other than representation. In my mind, Babs is at her best as Oracle. She's not just another Batman reskin, she offers something unique to the Bat family and also to the superhero community at large, often helping organise the heroes during major events. Plus, I hate how they seem to have de-aged her for the Burnside run, where she looks like she's 15 despite having been doing superheroics for about a decade. And on a related note, they've redesigned her again with this new costume that looks like what she had in either Thrill Killer or All-Star Batman and Robin. The only reason I can think of as to why they might have done this is that they wanted Kate and Barbara to look more distinctive from one another, but with Kate's CW show coming out with a costume that is in-universe, a reworked version of Batman's suit, making her look more like Batgirl than ever, I guess they figured it made more sense to change Barbara's design, even though she changed designs only a few years ago and Kate has barely changed in over a decade. Speaking of Kate, she had debuted recently enough for her ongoing storylines to just continue unaltered into the New 52, aside from stories like Final Crisis and maybe 52 being erased. She got to star in the first ever Batwoman solo book, which was the centre of a controversy when Kate proposed to her girlfriend Maggie Sawyer, only for DC to decide they weren't allowed to get married, causing the writer and artist to quit the book in protest. This book was cancelled about a year later, and Kate became a lead character in the Rebirth Detective Comics run, where she trained up Batman's new team. Steph and Cass were wiped entirely until, a few years later, they were reintroduced in the Batman Eternal and Batman and Robin Eternal storylines respectively. The two joined up with Kate's team in Detective Comics soon after. Steph, as spoiler, became Tim's girlfriend again, which was noted as a major element of the pre-New 52 universe trying to reassert itself. Steph struck out on her own after Tim's supposed death and is now exploring the differences between the two timelines with Tim. Cass, meanwhile, was reimagined as an operative for a human trafficker named Mother, who basically does what David Kane did with Cass, with him being one of her operatives too. Cass's first kill here was the mother of Harper Row, who would become one of Cass's friends and a superhero named Bluebird, just to make things a bit more personal and tightly packed. Under her father's old alias of Orphan, Cass became good friends with a redemption-seeking Clayface up until Kate killed him to stop him from losing control. She then pretty much single-handedly kicked Kate out of the team and then retired from superheroics, but I suspect she'll be back after the normies see her in the upcoming Birds of Prey movie. There have been a few other noteworthy characters to bear these mantles in other continuities as well. For instance, in the DC Animated Universe movie Mystery of the Batwoman, 3 women used the Batwoman name. I keep hearing that they weren't allowed to use Kate because she's too violent, even though Kate didn't exist back in 2003. There have been numerous other Batgirls across alternate universes and potential futures in the comics too, such as Tiffany Fox, daughter of Lucius Fox in Future's End, a girl called Nyssa in Batman Beyond Unlimited, and the Batgirls from Bombshells, in which Barbara Gordon is a French fighter pilot who becomes a vampire. And yes, Batwoman is baseball themed in Bombshells, because Bombshells is cracktastic. And, of course, we can't finish this Bat Lady retrospective without discussing the greatest of them all. Batcow was saved from a slaughterhouse by Bruce and Damian. Damian, not being an edgy little shit when he's written well, decided to keep her and gave her a code name. She even managed to make Bruce smile, which is a rare thing in modern comics. Thank God they never put her in Injustice, or Superman would cook her and feed her to Bruce. Fun fact, this video was originally going to be the debut episode of A Line Through Time Series 2 back in 2017. That's how long this has been in the works. As for the inevitable question that will dominate the discussion in the comments, my favourite Batgirl is Stephanie Brown. Her dynamic with Barbara is great, her costume is the best, and her friendship with Cass is just precious. She's just fun to watch in both action and banter scenes. That's not to say the others are at all bad, of course. Cass has multiple cool designs, her situation is unique, and her tragic friendship with Basil was beautiful. Barbara is awesome as Oracle in both Birds of Prey and Stephanie's run, especially when cocky motherfuckers step to her and she proves she's still got it. Is adorable and actually shows growth as both a person and a hero. Kate is a badass, and DC refusing to let her and Maggie be happy should be considered a war crime. And Kathy sucks, good riddance. If you liked this video, why not subscribe and support me on Patreon like these fine people here? If not, then make sure to share it with your enemies so they can suffer along with you. Today's recommended playlist is Linkara's Cassandra Cain retrospective for those of you that want to learn more about Cass in depth. This series was helpful for my own research, and he has hinted that he might do the same for Steph in the future, so go give it a watch and encourage him to do exactly that.
A girl's gonna kick your butt.
Yeah, we'll see about that, Batgirl.